Is this the hearing that could cause President Trump's crusade against James Comey and Letitia James to unravel? Well, today, lawyers for the former FBI director and New York Attorney General asked a court to disqualify the Trump loyalists who brought charges against them in separate cases. They argue that Lindsay Halligan was illegally appointed after the prior prosecutor resigned under pressure for arguing the evidence wasn't there to charge Comey and James. Her appointment also came 2 days after President Trump floated her for the role in a Truth Social post, urging the DOJ to charge Comey, James, and other political enemies. Joining us now, MSNBC's Lisa Rubin, reporting from Alexandria, Virginia. Brendan Ballou, former federal prosecutor and former lawyer with the DOJ National Security Division. Anthony Coley is former director of the Office of Public Affairs at the Biden DOJ and an MSNBC political analyst. So, Lisa, give us the update, what happened in court today, and when might we get a ruling?
So Judge Curry, Chris, who heard the arguments today, is a judge from the District of South Carolina. Of course, she was plucked by the chief judge of the Fourth Circuit, that's the federal appeals court here, to hear this argument, because one of the issues here is whether the president and the attorney general overstepped their authority by installing Lindsay Halligan in her role as an interim U.S. attorney. The government's argument is that every time there's a vacancy, that they have 120 days to appoint an interim U.S. attorney, and that they can essentially recycle those 120 days again and again and again through different appointments by the attorney general. The attorneys for Tish James and Jim Comey argued that can't possibly be true, because if it were true, that would usurp the constitutional roles in our system that are supposed to be played by the president in nominating inferior officers like U.S. attorneys and the Senate in confirming them. Judge Curry sort of had what I'd call a stone face today, not really giving very much in terms of her reaction to the arguments, but she signaled a couple of things. One, she's going to rule before Thanksgiving. That's important because the next stage of both of these cases happens after that. And if she were to decide that Lindsay Halligan's appointment here is invalid and that the indictments have to be dismissed, she would be saving everyone involved a lot of work before they come back to court and argue their next motions on vindictive and selective prosecution. But the other thing that I think is particularly notable, my colleague Fallon Gallagher noted that her last question to the government was whether they believed that Judge Cannon's opinion dismissing the case against President Trump on the grounds that special counsel Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed, whether that should essentially control here. And she was implying that if Jack Smith couldn't maintain his role as special counsel because, like Lindsay Halligan, he was not nominated by a president, confirmed by the Senate, then should the result here be any different? Chris?
All right. So, Brendan, what did you make of the arguments today? And do you think there is strength to the case to say that she should not be there, Lindsay Halligan?
Absolutely. And I think it's important for your viewers to understand that this 120-day limit isn't some sort of technical or sort of procedural requirement. It really goes to the heart of what the Department of Justice and what U.S. attorneys are supposed to be about. U.S. attorneys are nominated by the president and, importantly, confirmed by the Senate to ensure that, hopefully, they're qualified and nonpartisan. Lindsay Halligan, based on her early performance, is neither of these things. She's never served as a U.S. attorney or even as a prosecutor before, and she seems very willing to go after Donald Trump's political opponents. Based on the public reporting of what I saw on Judge Curry's sort of questioning, it seems like she understood the import here, that this wasn't just a technical violation, but potentially got to sort of the core of what the U.S. attorney work is and what the grand jury proceedings are. I think what's going to be really interesting to see is if Judge Curry, in fact, decides that Ms. Halligan was unlawfully appointed, what is the remedy here? Is it essentially no harm, no foul, and prosecutions continue? Or is the fact that Ms. Halligan, the one who actually presented these cases, does that mean that the cases themselves need to get dismissed?
Okay, so Anthony, I wonder, in the past, the president has never let a legal loss stop him. So if the judge would rule against him, what would you be watching for?
Well, there are two things I'm watching right now. I think, of course, Chris, he would like to win in the court of law. But in many ways, this process that is playing out right now, the process itself is the punishment. He wants Tish James. He wants Jim Comey. He wants all of these people who are facing these bogus prosecutions to spend millions of dollars in legal fees. He wants them to have sleepless nights. He wants them to have a hit to their reputation. But the other important thing that is happening right now, these prosecutions send a signal to anyone who would challenge him. If you don't toe the line, he's going to come after you. And Chris, this was reiterated again to me today. I was reading through the Washington Post and I came across an article of a person that you interviewed about a month ago during the start of the government shutdown. This was a lady who was a union leader. She was speaking in her own capacity, and you asked her about SNAP benefits and the impact that the shutdown would have on those who would rely on those SNAP benefits. And the very next day, the Washington Post reported that she had received notice that the process to begin her removal had begun, all because she was just telling you the truth about what would happen to people who rely on those SNAP benefits. And is that type of truth-telling, of shooting straight with the American people, about talking about facts and about standing firm on the law? When Donald Trump doesn't like that, he wants to send a message that he's coming for people. And that's what, to me, what the Comey prosecution and the Tish James prosecution represent.
Is coming for people, to use Anthony's phrase, Brendan, something that a regular citizen might have recourse against?
You know, it's a great question. So ordinarily, prosecutors are absolutely insulated from their core job decisions. You know, they are entitled to prosecutorial discretion. The interesting thing is whether a citizen can get their case dismissed based on what are called vindictive or malicious prosecution grounds. It's generally very hard to have that happen. But here, Donald Trump has, in essence, given folks like Tish James and James Comey a lot of ammunition by saying that he was planning to prosecute them or wanted them prosecuted because they were political enemies. So in a lot of these cases, defendants are, for better or worse, much better positioned to get their cases dismissed because Donald Trump is so talkative about what he's trying to accomplish. Very briefly, I'll just add, you know, the next challenge is going to be, could a defendant or somebody that is targeted or maliciously prosecuted by this administration seek some sort of damages or remedy beyond getting their case dismissed? That's something that's going to be really interesting to see if, in fact, Comey or James's prosecutions are dismissed.
Lisa, there's also an update today on Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver's fight to dismiss charges against her from Trump's DOJ. What did the judge have to say?
So LaMonica McIver, Chris, moved to dismiss the indictment against her on multiple grounds, including the fact that as a member of Congress, she is legislatively immune from being prosecuted where she is carrying out her congressional responsibilities, which include oversight. And because she was at that immigration facility in Newark the day of the alleged assault, she is saying she was trying to do oversight. The very fact that she was arrested and prosecuted stems from her attempt to exercise legislative oversight that day. She also says that her case is a classic example of selective and vindictive prosecution. And on most of those grounds, she failed. The one thing that the judge says he's going to reserve decision on is whether one of the 3 counts in the indictment is one for which she's legislatively immune. He says he needs to review more of the evidence, and specifically body camera and other video footage from that day before he makes a call. But in the main, he is saying that LaMonica McIver's arguments with respect to being selectively and vindictively prosecuted don't pan out. And not only that, she hasn't even established sort of the bottom threshold necessary to get more discovery to support those claims. That sort of puts a pin in the balloon, so to speak, with respect to perhaps others who have been prosecuted by the Trump administration and who similarly have an expectation that they will be able to show selective and vindictive prosecution in their cases. That includes not only the 2 defendants who are here today, Tish James and Jim Comey, but also John Bolton and potentially others. Chris?
Lisa Rubin, Brendan Ballou, and Anthony Coley, thank you all.